what are the subjects that you would say a typical grade 9 student would have to sort of focus on when they're choosing these subjects if they want to do chemical engineering?
A non-negotiable would be maths and physics.
And then the second part of my question would be, are there any keywords that they need to look out for when applying to university?
I think some universities do have a preference for certain industries, but that I think, or in my case, you only get to know that once you are there.
Funding, which I know is a question that most of our viewers probably buzz in. Do you know of any specific funding opportunities that our viewers who are looking to study chemical engineering could research on?
The fortunate thing about chemical engineering and most of the big 5 engineering disciplines is that funding is readily available, especially by...
Hello and welcome back. Goodness, I've missed my seat. You are watching the Success in Color podcast, and I am your host, Mishay, with a new surname, Petersen. Today, I have another wonderful guest with me, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
So hi everyone, hi Mishay. I'm Aimee Pierce. I'm a chemical engineer.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from.
So I'm from Cape Town. I was born and raised in North Pine, in the northern suburbs. And I attended Stellenbosch University.
Awesome. We got a Stellies lady in the house. So thank you so much for joining us, Aimee. Firstly, we'll just go into your career and then we'll just dive into everything else after that. So you can start off by telling us what kind of career you are in.
Okay, so I am a chemical engineer. Although in my career, oftentimes we switch between the title chemical and process engineer. So currently my title is process engineer, but it's been chemical engineer in my previous role, and that is,
Okay, thank you so much for that, Aimee. So the next question would be what a day-to-day looks like for you as a chemical or processing engineer.
So chemical engineering is very, very broad. A lot of people that I studied with they'd either do the more traditional working on a plant, or they would work for a design house. But there are also a bunch of my peers that went into banking, that do data analytics, that do data science, machine learning. I know those are quite popular as a non-traditional route for chemical engineer. But mostly I would say design houses and process plants. If you do work on a chemical plant or a process plant, you're often involved in optimization and projects. So those are the two big things. If you work for a design house, you would design these chemical plants. So if you see big distillation towers or big cooling towers, in Cape Town, especially, I think a traditional place for chemical engineer to work would be the Astron refinery in Milnerton. So if you work for a design house, you'd often design a facility like that. So yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. And it's so funny you would say that, because I was thinking about the Kubuk is the Kubuk station there. I don't even know what to call it right now.
Yeah, no, even that. A chemical engineer would also work there.
That's awesome. I thank my husband right now, because I wouldn't have known that if we didn't speak about it, because he's in a similar trade. So he does work on those kind of plants, or he used to. And so that is how I basically know all of that information. But thank you so much for that. So now that we have a little bit of a breakdown of, what the day-to-day would look like, I would want to ask, what are the subjects that you would say a typical grade 9 student would have to sort of focus on when they're choosing these subjects if they'd want to do chemical engineering?
So a non-negotiable would be maths and physics. Definitely. And then so I had life science and geography, which depending on the field that you go into could help. So if you go into the medical side or pharmaceutical side of Chem-Eng, I guess life science would help. If you go into mining, geography would help. But if you But more generally and more broadly, I would say engineering, graphics and design would be a big plus, especially if you're going to go into mechanical engineering and civil as well. And then coding and robotics, I think would also help. IT is also big. I had IT up until grade 11 and then I switched, but IT helps a lot because you do a lot depending on the field you are in, but you can do a lot of coding. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So when you said maths and physics, I was like,
I saw you.
Not me with my maths lit. So that's a big one. I'm sure that would be what most teachers even would suggest to students, mathematics and physics and all of those kind of things. But thank you for that. So the next question would be the gap between finishing matric and getting into university. So how do they go about that process? What institutions do they prioritize is one. And yeah, just basically key components that they would have to look out for. So firstly, we can go into the first one, which is what institutions they should focus on when wanting to study chemical engineering.
So I know that the more traditional universities, I would say, is what most chemical engineers do, or what most chemical engineers attend. So I went to Stellenbosch, and I'm also a bit familiar with UCT. But yeah, so I would say any of the traditional universities should offer chemical engineering.
And then the second part of my question would be, usually when studying courses like that, for example, for me with teaching, it's straightforward. They say education studies. There's then phases within that. So for chemical engineering, are there any keywords that they need to look out for when applying to university, or is it also as straightforward as teaching?
Although I think some universities do have a preference for certain industries, but that I think, or in my case, you only get to know that once you are there. So I don't think you need to know exactly what field you want to go into. If you want to do mining or whatever you can attend in any of the big universities, I'm sure it's quite broad, so it will allow you to go into any industry afterwards.
Hi guys, I just wanted to take a minute of your time just to say thank you for supporting us. Thank you for liking, sharing and donating as well. But wanting to know more about Success in Color and more about our podcast, please do find out more on our website, also about how you are able to share value and support us on this journey. Thank you. Back to the video.
So my next question is funding, which I know is a question that most of our viewers probably buzz in. Specifically, do you know of any specific funding opportunities that our viewers who are looking to study chemical engineering could research on?
The fortunate thing about chemical engineering and most of the big 5 engineering disciplines is that funding is readily available, especially by private institutions. So in my case, I didn't have funding up until I knew my final matric results. So my first bursary was with Stellenbosch University. So if you achieve above a certain percentage, you get a merit bursary. And then after that, I got a private bursary with Sasol. So Sasol is one of the big corporations in South Africa that offer many bursaries to chemical engineers. So that's a big one. Eskom and any of those big companies, Eskom, SAPI, Rheinmetall Munitions, Astron as well. So yeah, I would go for those big corporations, those big multinational corporations. They often have a bunch of bursaries for chemical engineers.
That's so informative to know that, all these companies are offering these scholarships, and also beautiful to know because I'm sure leading up to that, there are probably other opportunities for students as well. Yeah. Do you know if NSFAS covers chemical engineering?
I'm sure they do. But most people I studied with had private bursaries. another company that I didn't mention was Anglo American. They also offer multiple bursaries. NSFAS, I'm sure would. Yes, I do remember one person that I studied with who had a NSFAS bursary. So they do.
Okay, I guess what I'm picking at was just like what would be the most probable decision to make. So first approach the private companies is what I'm trying to reach at, if you can understand.
Yeah, I believe that there are a lot more opportunities with the private companies. I also think you have slightly less competition, because I always think like about the competition and the numbers and my chances of getting a bursary. So if you apply to NSFAS, you're competing against so many students with different degrees and start studying different things. Where if you go for these big multinational firms, they are often only looking for engineers, maybe actuarial scientists or scientists itself. So I would rather go for a private corporation, just because I know there's less competition. I don't have to compete with the whole of South Africa, essentially.
And I agree.
Yeah.
And one thing I could also add is it gives the students an opportunity to learn about what they want to go into, if I'm correct. So
Yes,
these corporations will also then, because they have to research, so they have to find out what these corporations do. And that is how they know if this is something they would get funding from. So I feel like it would also give our students a better opportunity of gaining knowledge of the industry. So that's actually a great tip there.
So another benefit of these large companies is the fact that there's often work back obligations. So you have a job as soon as you are done. So because these big companies would fund you, they would say you need to work for us once you are done. There's often also back work opportunities. So as you are studying, you have these opportunities to learn the industry, to get your feet wet. And then when you are done, you have to work for the company. So that's also why I'm a big advocate for getting your bursary from a big private institution, just so that you know you have a job afterwards, you have that job security, and you have that hands-on training that you get in your back work as well.
Which I love so much. And I think even of my own journey, one thing, the reason why I'm at the institution that I'm at is because while we are studying, we also have that practical.
Yes.
So it's the theory plus the practical that we have every single year, so that it's that I'm learning the theory, but I'm also out in the field and I'm understanding what my job entails. So I love that they get job shadowing opportunities and all of that. I'm also a very big advocate for that. So I must support you there. So now that we've got all the important stuff out the way, I'd like for you to tell us about your personal journey. So how did you get to studying chemical engineering? Was it your first choice? Was it the last choice? Was it not a choice at all? How did we get there?
I had a bunch of very varied interests in high school. So there was a time where I wanted to be a lawyer. There was a time where I wanted to be an architect. There was a time where I don't know what I wanted to be, but I know I was thinking of studying PPE, which is political, philosophical, and economical studies. So I had very varied interests, but I had a father who told me, you know what your strengths are, focus on that. And my strengths were maths and science. Those were two subjects that I never had to think hard about and worry about, because I knew I always would do or be fine. I would be fine. So I decided to lean into my strengths. This is what I'm good at. And then I started to check all the different careers that are out there. And during my research, I came across chemical engineering. I thought I think is perfect for me. Yeah.
I love that you had a father that was speaking into that. And I think that is such a beautiful testimony, even leaning on your strengths. Because I think one thing even a lot of adults in our lifetime are struggling with is being in a job that they're not actually passionate about. So that is amazing. So how long have you been a chemical engineer?
This is my 5th year post-studies, yeah.
Okay. And how have you been finding it? Are you still passionate about it? Is the passion growing? Are you finding it?
So I'm still passionate about it. Yeah, it changes. So the nice thing with chemical engineering is every day you have a problem to solve and there's something to solve. So sometimes it can be frustrating, especially if you don't know what the answer is. But that's also the thing that pushes you. Like or at least in my case, I enjoy problems. So I think it's exciting. So I am still enjoying it, yeah.
That's awesome, which is also a strength. So come on, Dad. That's amazing. I guess my last question would be any words of wisdom that you have for students who are looking to study chemical engineering, who maybe don't have a support system or do have it, but they're still battling with the decision. What would your word of wisdom be for them?
My words of wisdom would be to reach out to people and don't be shy. I think it's something I also had to overcome, but it's very unlikely that people will turn you down. So if you want to know something, and I had people message me on LinkedIn before, I always answer. So if there is a career you're interested in and you have some questions, ask people. You can ask them on LinkedIn. You can ask a friend who knows someone to give you their number, or yeah. So ask around, and also do whatever research you can yourself as well. So your phone is there. We have now, kids have all the tools that I didn't have, like AI. So ask around what skills you should have for a certain career, what a day in the life looks like for that career, where this person got a bursary, and reach out to people you may know.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So you heard it from Aimee. You have not because you ask not. So ask the question. Thank you so much for joining us today, Aimee. It was so lovely to have you.
Thank you.
I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm so excited for the chat after this. But we love to hear from you, and we wish you all the best with your journey ahead. And may it just branch out and be 10,000 times more amazing than it already has been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to our viewers. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned if you want to know more information. Bye for now. If you found this content valuable, you are more than welcome to give us a thumbs up and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on TikTok as well as Instagram, where we share some more interesting content about career planning and beyond. Thank you for joining me with the Success in Color podcast. My name is Mishay, your host. Bye for now.